If you could only know the places that we go. In my name, the scent of your breath, gentle kisses on my neck and whispers.
Ciao everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today's studio tour is a bit of a different format from the usual tours I've done previously. In fact, I sat down with Paul Blakey, who is a very well-known mastering engineer here on the Gold Coast. The list of artists who worked with Paul, it's quite impressive. I will leave a link in the description. So if you are interested in mastering and want to know more, I'm sure you will like this video. As usual, if you like the video, please share it with your friends, click the subscribe button. I'll leave it to the video. I hope you enjoy. Ciao for now. I'm here with Paul Blakey. Welcome everyone. And Paul is a mastering engineer.
Correct.
Okay, correct?
And thank you for having me.
What I wanted to ask you first, before the mastering engineering job, what was your first step into music?
I guess I learned to play a couple of instruments as a kid.
Okay.
Got some formal training in pianos and keyboards.
Formal training.
Not a lot because I didn't have the patience for it. And I started to do a couple of professional gigs, just by accident really. And I did law. And so to pay my way through that was partially music, you know. And
You played gigs as well?
yeah. My first professional gig was actually as a slide guitar player.
Nice.
And
Country music?
no, it was more blues and
cool.
stuff, you know. And then I've always been a bit of a jazzer, so like
Okay.
over the years I keep coming back to standards and jazz shows and things.
Nice.
So you know, it was
So
just
playing basically.
Yeah,
Like,
and then I got into, by accident, I got into a bit of production and a bit of post-production.
okay, so that's how you started.
Yeah, like I didn't wake up and say, oh, I'm going to be mastering records.
Yeah,
In fact, how that happened was I was doing something. I was doing a few things, you know, and a good friend of mine and a markedly frank but always fair comment came from an old friend of mine, Mike Wade, and he gave me a track because I was doing stuff like what they call sweetening. And he said, you know, you don't realise what you're doing, but you're actually mastering.
Yeah.
And can I tell you, it's the only thing you're probably any good at? So we're really good at it, is what he said, actually. So like when I looked at that, I thought, you know, I'll take
He's
that
right.
I'll take that on board, and you know, one thing led to another, and it was completely accidental.
Oh, well, that's how the best things happen.
Completely accidental, and it's just sort of, you know, kicked on.
Yeah, okay. So, like, when was your first formal mastering job?
I can't remember.
You can't remember? And which artist? You don't remember even the artist?
No, but I can tell you that the one that sort of got me really going
Okay.
was a fella called Carroll out of the techno world in America.
Okay.
Because I did a bit of that, you know.
Oh, all right.
I do love that stuff. And that kind of got me a bit of a credit, if you know what I mean. And in Australia, there was another guy I know down in Sydney, and he wanted me to come down and do some work with him on his own music at his studio in St. Peter's, and I kept saying no, and then one day I opened the mail and there's a plane ticket to come down. So I couldn't say no, and that also helped because of who he was, you know.
Paul, where are you originally from? Are
Here,
you
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast,
boy.
born and raised?
Yeah.
There we go.
Had lots of chances to go to other places, but stayed here.
Yeah,
And
there
then
you
the
go.
internet saved us, so I don't need to go anywhere.
True. So, let's talk about mastering, because
Yeah,
I would like probably to ask you, if you have to explain mastering to a non-audio person, how would you describe it, this process?
Well, I think it's probably the final creative stage. And by creative, that's limited in my the way I think about it anyway, that's pretty limited. It's about working out how to make the music connect better with the audience. You know, that there's something about every track that's connecting, and recognizing what that is intuitively, and bringing that out is the main thing. And the second, and well, no, I won't even say it's the second. An equally important part is the quality control. So,
Okay,
you know,
yes.
my mentor's Louis Shelton, who's only got the one induction into the US Hall of Fame. And he, you know, he gives me stuff. Now, there's no reason. I mean, it's not like he is who he is, you know. So people like that, I get these tracks from, and some other serious mixing engineers. And the reason is quality control, you know. What is it they've missed? Is there a click there that's distracting? You know, because they've listened to it 100 million times.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there was the late, great Denny Purcell from Nashville, a famous mastering engineer, very colourful guy. And he was full of a lot of great sayings. And one of them was, you only get one chance to listen to something for the first time. And it's quite intuitive, because that first time I am the punter. I've never heard it before.
Yeah.
You know, so you've really got to have the discipline to listen to something really carefully the first time.
Yeah.
Make some notes in your head. I mean, he was better than me, so he made them as in writing as well. But sometimes I do make text notes as I'm listening to something, but generally it's in my head. And you know, just to make sure that
after
there's
10
nothing
times you're hearing it, your brain start to
I know,
playing
it's 10
around.
times,
Yeah. So we would say last creative step, quality control.
Yeah.
What else?
The technical deliverables.
Yeah.
So they're becoming more and more sophisticated
Yeah.
these days.
Okay.
So, you know, like. you've got
Let's
stuff
explain
like-
what's a technical
Okay.
deliverable.
Well, at the end of the project, you've got to you have to deliver something.
Files.
And the set of files that is going to be used for the purpose. So 9 times out of 10, it's for digital distribution. So at the moment, and some of that stuff changes over time. So at the moment, I'm delivering 24 at 48, 16 44.1 WAV files, 3 sets of MP3s. And if there's instrumentals,
Quite extensive,
24,
your
48.
deliverables.
Yeah. And you know, you can't ever turn your back on digital. You can't trust it. So you've got to listen to those, not the MP3s, but you've got to listen to the 2448. So I work natively at 32-bit float 96. That's getting a bit technical now, isn't it?
Yes.
You told me not to.
That's okay. That's okay. It's not too technical. No. This is like basic. This is basic
okay, all right,
technical
okay.
that probably people would appreciate information about.
You just don't get that opportunity, you know. With a label, you deliver one file. That's it. It's got to be good for everything,
Yeah. Okay.
you know. And that can include vinyl sometimes. You know, sometimes I forget to tell you that. And you know, I know you're supposed to master specifically for vinyl and things, and sometimes, like I just did a project for a label last week, Universal, and that was what the gig was. It was just vinyl.
A normal day of a mastering engineer. How many songs you master every day? What's
I work pretty quick, so.
so quite a lot of songs.
No, not really, because I'm careful as well.
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, what I'll do is, like, if I get a single, I get about 2 to 3 jobs a day. So I'm pretty behind.
Quite busy guy.
Yeah, and a bit behind. I'm bad. So what I'd like to, if I've got the luxury of not delivering it to the following day, it's nice to listen to it with fresh ears the next day, because 9 times out of 10, it's okay, or we make a tiny adjustment, and that 1 time out of 10, you think, what was I thinking? You know?
Okay, it happens.
And that's usually because your ears have been tired the night before, you know. So, and some stuff just masters itself. You know, song performance first, big first, way out front. Then how that's recorded,
And that's of course recorded, how it's mixed.
yeah, that comes down to the cue a bit. So if you've got a good song with a great vocal performance, trumps everything.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, true.
It really does, you know, because no one leaves the gig humming the kick drum pattern. You know, it just doesn't happen, you know, and that's how humans communicate, and the evidence of that is radio. Because, you know, radio, listening to something, you can become emotional over a song.
Yeah.
It's connecting, but you can't see the person,
Yeah.
you know. But we're really good at
hear
that.
the person,
We're really good at determining what that's like.
Very
And
true.
again, there's something connecting about that, which is my job, making it connect. Helping it connect, not making it, but helping it connect. That works in my world is I got a big PC next door, and that's got top of the line RME.
RME.
Something, yeah, 96 something or other, AE, all in out. And then that sends AES out to that thing, which is a Lavery converter, digital to analog converter.
Okay.
So it goes direct AES into that. That goes into this, which is a custom controller built for me in America by a guy called Glenn Coleman, who unfortunately just passed away last month. But so that's entirely passive. Then from that, so it comes out of that into here. We're all straight wire so far. You know, there's no processing going on.
Yeah.
And then it goes directly into the big custom power amp there, which is, I used to run different amps, but got put onto that by some guys that I know in America. And that's a thing called a Hypex, and it's designed by some, just one of the geniuses of our time, a guy called Bruno Putzis, designs the parts for it. So you can't buy one, you've got to buy the components and make it. And that's got no shared components left or right. So it's complete, and it's based on, it's Class D.
Yeah, okay.
Switch amplifier. And he worked out a way to make them audiophile. You know, so they're not super expensive to buy the parts, but then you've got to find somebody that can put them together and, you know, have that nice
So monitoring system, definitely you had quite invested into that.
And the same card sends out a second signal to this thing, which is a Mytech
headphone.
DAC. Well, it's a DAC, so you can run it. It could drive the system quite well, but in my case, it's just purely a headphone.
What set of headphones are you using?
Well, I don't use anything really flash. It's just mainly for capturing, you know, quality control and working out what it is. So I just use a set of Biodynamic 1990 Pros, and they're open back, so they give you that little bit of extra bass extension.
And that's mainly for quality control, but
just
so like
so I always make a
you definitely
starting
like
and final decision on those things.
And tell us about a little bit those speakers.
So I went back to the old tannoys, which used to be ubiquitous in mastering places for a long time, and still a couple of famous places like Bernie Grundman still run them in every room. So they were built for me by an esoteric guy with no compromise involved, and so he rebuilt them for me from scratch. And so they've got all sorts of things going on with even the magnets are that it's a word I can never say, pneumidium or something. And all the wiring is oxygen-free Swedish wires, and you know, the list goes on.
The list goes on
and on and on.
And you trust them, which is
So they don't have the detail of, say, a modern ATC, or you know, those sorts of newer speakers. what they do have is just an amazing soundstage.
Okay.
You know, it's just a solid soundstage, and they're very unflattering. So what you hear is what you hear.
Yeah, yeah. And so from a previous conversation we had, like you told me that you pretty much moved completely in the box. So in terms of hardware, you have like a few pieces still.
I've still kept a bit. I sold or gave away, or well, sort of like, you know, permanent loaned some stuff.
Is there something that you still use?
Not unless I have to, you know. So, and one of the reasons for that is most of the stuff, a good percentage of the stuff I get already sounds great, you know. And is it worth that trip back out and in again? I don't know. You know, a few years ago I would have said absolutely, but you know, I think digital, and digital's like analog, you know, and just because it's analog, it wasn't great. You know, there's a lot of pretty crappy analog stuff built.
Of course.
And that's the same with digital. The world of digital too, you know, you've got, if you sort of, I like stuff that's been written and it doesn't sound like anything. I'm not after an emulation. You know, I just want something with transparency and no real box tone. You know, that's my world. And the best of that stuff, just by coincidence, happens to be usually written by people that have had a previous history designing analog. You know.
And so, talking about softwares, you use a specific mastering
I do.
DAW.
Yeah, I like Wavelab.
Wavelab.
Yeah, I did try Sequoia for a while, but we didn't get on. You know.
What do you like the most of Wavelab?
I like Wavelab because it's specifically designed for what it does. It's got a lot of things that you don't like. It's got a learning curve, big steep learning curve to get into it. But once you've done that, it does everything kind of that you want to, without having to think too much about it.
Okay.
Because
Would
you don't
you say
want stuff to slow you down if you're thinking about something.
And that's talking about the tool that
you
serve a purpose for what you do, for sure. What would you recommend to anyone that wants to start mastering and wants to?
I'd tell them to honestly think twice about it, because it sounds like a great job, and it is. But the pressure can absolutely kill you.
Okay. To be able to deal with pressure.
I can give you a real world example.
Yeah, give us
Not that long ago, I got a project from a guy that sends me a lot of pop music. And somebody somewhere had got the timing wrong. And so I got the email in the release date.
Oh, the release date, yeah.
So, and it's mixed by a guy that, you know, Sydney, that's, you know, a name you'd recognise, is, you know, very good at that stuff, and it sounded great. So I got the timing was, I got the email at about noon, around lunchtime, saying, "Oh, are you available to do this for me?" You know, he's not going to say no to this guy. So of course I said yes. So I said, yeah, and then he said, "Okay, I'll send it to you around 3 o'clock, and we need it back by 6:30 at the latest." So that's finished by 6:30 and uploading into wherever it's got to go by 6:30. So there's no chance of recalls. There's no chance. You've got to get it right the first time. Bit of pressure.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing is, it can be a bit isolating, you know, because if you're busy and you're doing it all by yourself, like you can have attended sessions, but I don't, because it slows everything down. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not very helpful either, you know, because you don't know the room, you don't know the monitors, you don't know anything, you know. So I'm not against it, but I just prefer not to have attended sessions. You know, I'd rather meet you somewhere else and talk about it.
Talk about it, yeah.
And so there's that. What's the other negatives? There's no real negatives. Really,
No, in fact, I wanted to ask you the positive. Like,
the positives.
what's your your first piece of suggestion to someone to approach and want to be a mastering engineer?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to listen to as much music as you can, in as many genres as you can over various historical timelines.
Yep.
And the reason for that is you just can't substitute that. You know, just knowing what things sound like, and what they should sound like. You know, not that you're not. You know, I try not to deliberately not to make something sound like something else, but there's still basic production standards.
Yeah.
You know, and to know what that is, the only way to do that really is to have a good solid base of music. So that I know a couple of guys that have just done EDM work. You know, they started as DJs and producers, and they moved into it. And there's one guy in Sydney that came from Europe, and that's all he does. That's all he's interested in doing. You know, so he's not interested in moving out of it. But even he has stuff going back to the Chicago warehouse days.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
so he's got a complete understanding of what that is, all the different subgenres within it, and it's a vast
Music,
vast
music,
music,
knowledge.
vast sea of knowledge
No,
there, you
yeah.
know, and experience. Whereas, you know, in my world, it's everything, you know,
Yeah,
country,
yeah,
big
absolutely, yeah.
country stuff,
I agree.
alt stuff,
Yeah.
you know, straight ahead pop.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just nuts.
And I think like that's a suggestion I would go probably for anyone involved in music anyway.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
but definitely for mastering.
And that's now
engineering.
accessible. I mean, you can do it because of streaming. You know, you don't have to go out to
Yeah, sure.
some record store in, you know, or order some 45 in from Argentina or something. You know, you can just stream the thing. So it is. Music's never been more accessible.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
So you can-
Talking about the technology, do you think AI is going to replace the work of engineers?
The truth is probably not. I think that, you know, there's always going to be a space for a human to make those decisions, because you don't want things to sound like some software thinks it should sound like. Where it will be extremely useful as it develops, and we're already starting to see that coming through, is it can help you in terms of like the plugin, features of plugins, like how that works. It can be time saving, and it can maybe start as a bass. So, you know, you've got a stand-up jazz bass going, you know, and like you can hear that it's not quite right. So maybe that AI can help you with that adjustment,
Yeah.
which then you can take that in the mix and make the further manual adjustments to
Yeah.
it, you know.
And one thing that you told me that I was like, that was gold, I think, like computer machine, they will never be able to replace color that human
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
will put into
Yeah.
something.
That's absolutely right. How red is that red?
Yeah,
In
exactly.
that picture, you know, like, and only you can make that call. You know? And so I'm very optimistic about how
We can
ca-
still work
how-
together.
how it will
with the
it can improve our lives.
So, like, I can see some records around
Yeah.
here. What's your? Do you have like a top 3 favorite artists that you like to listen
At home,
at home?
I've got one record that I play at least once a week for decades, and that's the Miles Davis Kind of Blue album. You know,
okay.
every time, I swear, every time I listen to that carefully, I hear something else or something that's not there, or, you know, and I really like that record.
Very
Um,
good.
Well, that's the Jazzer in
Yeah,
coming
yeah, yeah.
So in that other room, there's a fairly decent record collection, and
Okay.
that's focused in on soul from about 1940s, late 1940s through to mid 70s, you know. And I just like that, and doo-wop, a lot of doo-wop, and
Yeah, okay.
and I like it because of the immediacy of it. You know, it wasn't done over one track. Didn't take a month, and they didn't have 128 tracks of vocals. You know, and yet they still sound great. You know, bit of smooth jazz, which Louis does a lot. Louis Shelton does a lot of himself, and he's kind of put me onto it a bit. It's where everybody that can play and Playwill seems to have been drifting too slowly, you know. That and R&B. Love R&B, you know. Like South American music.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of that
What's,
MTV sound,
okay.
you know, out of Brazil. Even though I can't speak Portuguese, it's not necessary,
No,
really, you know.
it doesn't
It's
matter.
just so good, you know, Bebel Gilberto and all those cats. They're really, really interesting, you know.
What's the main genre that you receive as work? You would say pop? No.
Yeah, it comes in waves. It sounds weird, but it does, you know. So I do a lot of big country.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And a lot of high-end alt work, you know, Ziggy Albertson.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you a last question, Paul. Since you are into in the industry you've been here for a while, is there something that frustrates you of this current music industry?
Yeah, there is, and that would be the remuneration levels from the streaming services.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, we'd think the record labels were you know, sort of not paying great, but they paid. In retrospect, they were very fair, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's probably going to change. I see, basically, Bandcamp went under the, you know, had to be bailed out the other day.
Yeah.
You know, so that's going to change dramatically in what that looks and feels like, I would expect. Spotify's not really making any money, you know. So according to its filings, anyway, you know. So that really leaves Apple Music.
Yeah.
And it's a behemoth, but it pays better than, I think it pays better, I'm told it pays better than most.
So less frustrating things, more positive.
I'm really positive about it because I think we're sort of on the cusp of something developing into the next wave of things, and what that's going to look like. I had a chat with an A&R director that just by coincidence had exactly the same view. That if we were on, you know, post COVID stuff, and what those tours are looking like is probably scaled down, you know. So, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll definitely see.
But I'm very positive about it.
I can sense that positivity every time we have a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, a bit different from the usual. So we got some nice insight from mastering engineer Paul Blakey. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Could be such a good story.